Guild Wars 2 legendaries are the best in any Momopica, not just weapons, but armors, back pieces, trinkets, the whole kit and caboodle. The best in the entirety of the MMO gaming multiverse. Yeah, shots fired, and if there is not pandemonium in the comments, I will be sorely disappointed after that assertion, because yeah, that is one hell of a claim, but one I intend to back up. How, you may ask? Well, I'm going to be comparing the most prestigious loot in World of Warcraft and Final Fantasy XIV, two of the most popular and populous MMOs in the space, to Guild Wars 2 endgame gear to legendaries. We will, of course, side by side a selection of weapons and armors comparing the visuals of the gear as well as their utility and the difficulty of their acquisition. Now, before I begin, in the spirit of transparency, you should know that I have played all these games since launch. I am a WoW veteran and still have a great deal of love for that faltering old flame of a game. For 14, well, it has the best RPG storyline I have ever played. As for Guild Wars 2, I've been playing the game before there was a 2 added, and I've been making content for a few years now, and I love it dearly. In fact, I have equal love for all these games for very different reasons, but I stand by my claim. Guild Wars 2 legendaries are subjectively the best legendaries in the MMO gaming multiverse. So let's start with an overview of the gearing systems of these games, see what the playing field looks like, and consider what makes a legendary legendary. Each game has a tiered loot system, starting with event trash and ending in the game's equivalent of legendary items, its zenith tier. So there are 8 tiers of quality for Guild Wars 2 kit, 7 for World of Warcraft, and 5 for 14. Now generally the lower tiers are there to serve as leveling loot, with the most prestigious tiers being kind of a call to action, the catalyst to an aspirational journey and or challenge for max level players seeking that endgame content and loot supremacy, the only kind of supremacy I will ever advocate for on this channel. Now, it's fairly straightforward comparing 14 and WoW, as 14 is the spiritual evolution of vanilla WoW, just ask Yoshi P, and because both games' elite gear, top tier, best of the best, is won inside raids exclusively, specifically mythic raids for World of Warcraft and ultimate raids for Final Fantasy XIV. The weapons and armors for vanquishing this extreme content are not only the highest item level attainable, at least at their time of release, they often have unique and or enhanced appearances. What about Guild Wars 2 then? Does the game even have raids, first of all, and do those raids drop the best gear? Well, yes and yes, but not only. So, let me elucidate. In Guild Wars 2, there most certainly are raids. Brilliant, although not as many as the community would like. And in those raids, you get drops, tokens, and unlock collections to obtain the best gear in the game, which includes legendaries, and I will explain that distinction a little later on, so please bear with me and stay tuned. And I did say not only, because there are more paths in the game to get that zenith tier of loot. From PvP and World v World gameplay to crafting, all can reward legendary gear if you choose to pursue that journey. Now, some will bemoan that diversity of acquisition as devaluing, but I ask you to hold your judgment. For the time being, let me make my case. But I guess the question we must look at is, what is a legendary and what is not? Do you personally consider cutting edge gear as equivalent to legendary gear? Let's think about 14. If you see a player with ultimate weapons, what is your takeaway? I mean, for me, I see those shiny lovelies as certainly aspirational and representing the best of the best in terms of item level and even skill. Most certainly, but do those attributes measure up to the notion that I have of legendary? Do they measure up to the notion that you have of legendary? Is that even a fair question in 14? Would it be fairer to look at lux weapons, which grow through time and player endeavor, or are they too ubiquitous to be considered in the legendary category? Is rarity a necessity for a legendary? Does ultimate really mean ultimate? What about WoW then? Is mythic gear legendary? Is it the same category, the same ethos? I mean, for sure, the step up in visuals for the armor is often dramatic between lower level raids and mythic. Mythic item level is absolutely zenith, at least at the time of release. But do they hold the same value as Atiesh did in vanilla? Are the new generations of legendaries really worth that title? Did artifact weapons, as wonderful in terms of gameplay, story and acquisition, I really enjoyed them, but did they somehow deteriorate the status of old school legendaries in World of Warcraft? I mean, I could probably make an entire video talking about this topic in particular, but I guess we might be getting a bit esoteric here, so let's compare the aesthetics and see if we can come to some sort of conclusions. This is Exordium and Sunrise from Guild Wars 2. These beauties are ultimate raid claymores from 14, and glorious they are indeed. And these are Prelude to Judgment and Jathia's The Prison Blade from the most current raid in World of Warcraft. But some players in the comments might be thinking perhaps Thunderfury, Blessed Blade, or the Windseeker would be a better representation of a WoW legendary in this category. What about armor? Let's have a look. This awesome set is the Envoy armor from Guild Wars 2, specifically for the heavy armor wearers. These are 3 mythic plate armor sets from Shadowlands' last 3 raids. This set here is Agale Pantheon gear from 14 and its latest raiding extravaganza. Which of these do you think is worthy of the moniker of legendary? Some, none, what do you think? Let's look at another quintessential fantasy weapon, the staff. This is Nevermore, my Nevermore from Guild Wars 2. These are the ultimate eye candy from 14. Again, beautiful. This is the Guard Staff of the Great Cycle. Or should it be Dragon's Wrath here, Terraghosta's Rest, repping for World of Warcraft? Again, let me know in the comments below. What about some longbows? Let's get some longbows in here. And this is Kutsu. Again, Guild Wars 2 legendary, one of my legendaries that I've earned. And these are the beautiful, glorious ultimate weapons from 14. And again, this is also mine from World of Warcraft. Thoradal, the Star's Fury. Which of the lineup of eye candy goodness floats your boat? Which, if any, of these qualifies to you as a legendary item? Is the in-game tag at this point arbitrary? Here we go down the rabbit hole. So when I think about legendaries in World of Warcraft, I think about the Ashbringer and its master Alexandros Morgraine. I even envisage the corrupted Ashbringer as well, and its haunted whispers, despite the fact that it is not a legendary item. For me, these are relics of a much-loved world, of a lost world at this point, deeply woven as they are into the lore of Warcraft. To me, they possess that ineffable gravitas beyond mere aesthetics, and therefore, as fun as this exercise has been, in truth, visuals matter not. They do not determine merit. After all, aesthetic appeal is 100% subjective. And it is at this point that you'll probably be thinking, well, that's great, Fornax, but I mean, I've got to ask, have you had some kind of traumatic brain injury, or are you just full of shit? To which I say to you, good sir and or madam, yeah, that's a fair comment, but let me explain why, objectively, I think Guild Wars 2 legendaries are the best. Hear me out. So, WoW and 14 have numerous items which are arduous to obtain. WoW has its original legendaries like Atiesh and Ashbringer, and the more contemporary Mage Tower weapons and mount, which is very awesome, and I'm trying to get, but it's quite difficult. And 14 has its ultimate raid rewards, along with extreme lux, capstone and relic gear. All awesome, all great. So players have and do go to extraordinary lengths for prestigious items, even when their practical usefulness is, let's say, ephemeral. For a season, a few months. For example, Shadowmourne is awesome, but you're not going to be equipping it to face off against the jailer anytime soon. And that is the major difference between Guild Wars 2 legendary items, because they are not ephemeral. They do not lose power as new content rolls in, as expansions roll in. A legendary in Guild Wars 2 is always a legendary. It is always the most powerful armor, weapons, trinket, you name it. It is always best in slot. But that is just the tip of the iceberg, because all legendaries in Guild Wars 2 have the best quality of life features in the MMO gaming space. 100%, nothing else even comes close. So to understand how and why this is, we need to dive briefly into how Guild Wars 2 gearing and gear works. In Guild Wars 2, when a player hits max level at 80, their first port of call on their gearing journey is Ascended Loot. This tier of gear can be obtained in raids, in PvP, in Movie World, and crafted, as well as via reward collection achievement. Ascended armor pieces have individual stats baked in, but unlike other MMOs, this kit's stats, baked in stats, can be changed. This goes for armor, weapons, rings, etc. You can change it to whatever you like, links below for how to do all that. But that is just the beginning of honing the stats on your gear. Additional armor stats can be customized via runes. If you think of WoW's tier set bonuses, whereby you need to collect a number of pieces to obtain the benefit of the tier set bonus, Guild Wars 2 has put these stat set bonuses inside runes. So you can have completely unmatched exotic armor pieces, but by adding a complete set of runes, you get the stat set bonus you want. And boy, do you have choices. There are numerous rune sets giving you the scope to hone your character's stats precisely. You can change your runes as often as you wish and have mismatched rune sets if you like. In addition to rune slots, all Ascended gear also has 1 or 2 infusion slots. They offer you the ability to further boost your stats and add some extraordinary visual effects. However, if you want to tackle the hardest small group content in Guild Wars 2, which is fractals, you'll need to add a very specific type of infusion to your Ascended gear. If you think of fractals as mythic keystone dungeons in World of Warcraft, Ascended gear allows players to add a stat called Agony Resist, giving them survivable access to harder versions of fractal encounters that have many and multiple hindrances baked into those higher tiers. But we're not done yet with its utility, because Ascended gear is bound to your account, not to individual characters. This means that as long as a character on your account can equip it, Ascended gear can be moved to and used by other characters very easily. In summary, Ascended gear offers a real stat increase over the lower tiers of Guild Wars 2 loot, many quality of life upgrades, and access to full-man PvE endgame content. And if you want to stop gearing here in Guild Wars 2, you can. There is no stat boost to creating legendary gear. You do not get a single percentage point increase in your damage output by making a legendary. Not a one. So why would anyone bother to make legendary gear? With all that utility baked into the Ascended, there's no power to gain, there's no tempting of the min-maxers, and creating legendaries is a Herculean task. So honestly, why do I have legendary weapons? Why am I working towards my legendary armor sets? We need to talk about hyper utility. So what do I mean? Once you unlock a legendary item, it unlocks account-wide. So if a character on your account can use that legendary, whatever it is, it will appear in your UI here, where you can simply click to equip it. The only limit to the number of iterations of this item you can spawn and equip are the number of characters on your account who can equip it. And you can equip multiple iterations of the same legendary on a single account. So if your character can hold 4 swords, well, then you can spawn and equip 4 iterations of the same legendary. Legendaries also have hyper utility baked in to their stats. Via a drop-down on your gear, you can select any stat option in the game for your set, for your weapons, for your runes, the whole kit and caboodle. And when new stat sets are added to the game, your list of available stat sets to choose from is updated. And legendary gear is always best. It is always best in slot. But how? So Guild Wars 2 has banished the leveling and loot treadmill. The game has masses of progression with professions and classes and specializations and masteries to earn, as well as map traversal mechanics and mounts and gliding and augment arms, and the list goes on. It's just sans that traditional leveling gearing loop. When you hit level 80, you're done leveling forever. You're done, son. When you obtain your legendary gear, that is the best statted gear in the game. In fact, when you attain ascended gear, that is the best statted gear in the game. You can stop there, you're done. And it always will be. So if you have ever lamented outgearing the challenge of raids, this is the cure. This is the system for you. If you have ever wanted a level playing field where what matters most is player skill, this is it, kiddo. Once you have ascended gear, legendaries not required, you get that level playing field in Guild Wars 2. If you care about character customization via transmogging or transmuting your gear, which is of course the true endgame of all MMOs, well, Guild Wars 2 has got you covered. Guild Wars 2 legendaries can be transformed without reagents. No need to head to a city and find an NPC. You open your UI and you can fashion wars to your heart's content. And I cannot leave out the genre-leading dye system inside the game as well. You have lots of choice indeed, and I guess I could do a whole video on the dye system alone in this game. In fact, the only difference between legendary and regular gear for this type of utility for transmogging gear is there's a reagent cost. That's it. But first things first, what legendary gear is up for grabs in Guild Wars 2? Well, you can obtain legendary armors, weapons, trinkets, runes, sigils, and back pieces. Sigils are like runes for weapons. Guild Wars 2 legendary weapons have stunning visual, spell effects, and footfalls. There are 3 generations of legendary weapons. Generation 1 has 16 conventional unique weapons, 3 aquatic weapons, and 2 additional variations of the Greatsword just because. Generation 2 has 16 because it removed the aquatic weapons and doesn't have any variations in the lineup. Generation 3 has a base set again of 16 with a jaw-dropping 96 possible visual augmentations inspired by the Elder Dragons from the game's primary storyline. So that's 6 variations per weapon type. Most legendary weapons have lore links and background for RPers like me. Legendary armor has 3 unique sets for raiding, 1 for each of the armor weights. These sets have the most intricate animations in-game, and there are also legendary armor sets unlocked via PvP and WoW World gameplay. There are currently 3 unique legendary back pieces, all of which are stunning and have diverse visuals. Legendary trinkets come with their own visual effects as well. This is unique in MMO spaces and inside the game itself as well. This is top-end aspirational loot. Legendary runes and sigils do not have visual effects associated with them, but they have hyper utility. So, how do you acquire the most elite, most endgame of all endgame gear and all that hyper utility? Well, it's complicated and you have a number of routes to choose from. The fastest way to get a legendary weapon, and only weapon, is to have a lot of in-game gold. You can buy it off the trading post, the player economy inside the game. First generation of legendary weapons and the new Aurene-themed Gen 3 weapons can be purchased on the trading post. They are BOE legendaries. They cost between 3,000 gold for Generation 3 and about 2,000 to 3,500 for Generation 1, depending on what you're buying. The cost of creating a sellable Lego is around 1,800 gold. This may sound like a small amount of currency, but gold is not easy to generate in-game, especially if you are new or a casual player. And I hasten to add, all other legendaries in the game are bind on pickup and bound to your accounts. For one full set of legendary armor, unlocked via raids, you're gonna need at least 6 weeks. Why 6 weeks? Well, this is because you have to have 150 legendary insights. You get them from beating raid content, and you can only get 25 of those a week. But you'll also lead a lot more. All this collections, quests, treasure hunts, crafting, farming materials, not just from inside the raid themselves, but across the world. This is not a one drop and you're done. It is a journey of exploration, and it's similar for both World v World and PvP legendary armors and trinkets and back pieces. Each item and set has a unique creation journey built upon a kind of general framework. So once you understand kind of the procedural nature of creating Nevermore, then you choose to create Exordium like I did. Its path is very different to Nevermore, but it is analogous, so you're not completely lost. If you are a casual player like me, you can spend a year or more crafting a single legendary. However, if you are a focused, driven player and raider, you can have a legendary in every slot in probably under 6 months. Now, if this has piqued your interest in thinking about diving in and creating some legendaries in Guild Wars 2, links below to crafting guides and my referral link as well if you're interested in buying the game. It would help the channel. Anyway, shill over. So Guild Wars 2 legendaries can be min-maxed both mechanically by altering the armor stats, sigils, runes, and fusions, all without reagents, on the fly, anywhere. You just have to be out of combat. They are account bound and account wide. Visually, they can be changed via the game's brilliant transmutation and dye system. Guild Wars 2 legendaries are always best in slot, and their power never diminishes. I say again, if you have always wanted player power to be supreme, Guild Wars 2 offers you that. It has broken the Holy Trinity to offer more dynamic play. It has abandoned the gearing and leveling treadmill, making player skill, not item level, the most important factor in success. Both WoW and 14 are brilliant games. Both offer fantastic raiding experiences and glorious gear, regardless of how cutting edge it might be. The main barrier to gearing for players in these games is their ability to raid, be it time or skill or both. And of course, the RNG overlords of loot. Both games do have systems in place to soften the blunt instrument of that random number generator loot pinata, and therefore their gear is arguably easier to obtain for sure. However, the very nature of their systems renders the loot players earn useless in short order, and the loot that players receive in these games is very locked down. Beyond an increase in stats and some particle effects, this endgame kit offers no utility to their owners. Player skill can always be outmatched by item number across the board. So, I ask you, does my claim hold? And honestly, I think the best way for you to know if my argument has a merit is for you to jump in and play Guild Wars 2 and test the system for yourself. Don't take my word for it, test the system for yourself. And honestly, I love all these games for very different reasons, but I still stand by my claim, and I'll see you in the comments below to defend it. Now, if you have enjoyed this video, regardless of whether you agree with me or not, please do like, share and subscribe, and please show some love to my wondrous Patreons, Quantum Cat, Boblu, Sashim, Why You Need My Name, Aaron Boston, Mayokaju, Arthur, Pish Pash, Jordan, Nervacat, Carber K, Dylan, Jolly Joe Star, Driskin Ralav, Doug Smith, Dr. Watt, Moritoro, Zantera, Andy Farrell, Ken Schneider, Rye Ark, Matt Gibson, and Tristan Tazar. Due to ill health, I'm a disabled content creator. There has been a significant drought on this channel, and the support of my patrons has allowed me to keep going over these past few months, which have been very difficult. So thank you all so very much for your generosity and patience. Happily, things have improved of late. Yeah, a return to regular service is very much on the horizon, so thank you for your patience again. But that's all from me for now, so until next time, please stay safe, stay awesome, and thank you so much for watching. Bye bye.